welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. Got a very, very nice webinar for you today. We're putting a lot of work to try and explain everything that we're going to be doing. And just in these next few minutes, we're waiting for everyone to come in. Ethesham, what's the most exciting developing area in VU.CITY that you're most excited about right now?
Well, there's a lot of exciting things, a lot of which I can't talk about.
Yes.
But
what can you talk about?
The Viewshed is quite an exciting tool.
Yeah.
And I think we've been anticipating its release for quite a while.
Yeah.
It's been requested for quite a long time, and we're really happy to be able to finally release it to our users.
Yeah, it has so many uses as well. We've been going over this, things like mobile phone masts, security cameras. There's just so much that you can do with line of sight that goes beyond your standard planning application, and I think that's definitely one of the most exciting things about it.
Well, actually, I feel like saying 2023 was actually not important. It was quite a big year for our releases. We released the Viewshed tool in December. We also released the hide tool, which allows people to draw an area and hide the terrain so that they can bring in their master plans. We also released the VU.CITY functionality, which allows people to tell more refined and better stories with the camera study tool. So actually all of the features of 2023, I think, are quite exciting, and I'm really keen to understand how our various users can harness all of those tools.
And hello, Jonathan Bismarck. Thank you for joining us. If anyone has any questions, put them in throughout the conversation, because we're going to be coming back to those when it comes time for Q&A. We do have a lot of content to get through, so we want to make sure that we go through everything quite thoroughly and we can paint a full picture. But when we get to the Q&A, that'll be the time that we can really properly engage it and even do things live for you. So please do go ahead and let those questions come in as they come to you while we're going through these presentations. And can everyone, if everyone's listening, can everyone hear us okay? We've got a pretty sophisticated sound setup here, and I'm hoping that the sound test seemed fine from my earphones, but I'm just hoping that that's also coming through to you okay.
1 2 1 2.
Testing.
Yeah.
1 2 3. Do that thing where you. Brilliant. Thank you, Georgina. Really appreciate that. So just another sort of minute or two while we wait for everyone to come in, and then we're going to get straight into the London plan with Alan Smithies.
Might be more than 10 minutes to cover the London plan, but
well, yeah. Sections, relevant sections,
yeah.
Boiled down expertly by Alan. We'll probably take these headphones out now, actually. Oh dear, what happened there? We have gone. 1 sec.
You're still sharing your screen.
Yeah, I know. Why did this turn off? How's that looking? Can you?
We can see the display of the camera.
Oh, really? Ah.
You have to get out of the menu.
Okay.
Keep going back. Yep, we're back in.
Okay.
yeah, looks fine.
Well, I'm so glad all those extra settings weren't. Okay. And looks like we've got 126 now, so that's about fine. Oh, someone said, can't see Ethesham. The video's not started on LinkedIn yet. No, the video hasn't started on LinkedIn yet. Ethesham, would you mind messaging Manisha and Luke just to figure out what's going on there? Because I also did as well.
Okay.
Okay, brilliant. Now, while we're doing that, thank you everyone today for coming. Like I said before, we're just going to start with some brief introductions. Keep your questions coming. We have a lot to get through just to sort of really fully paint the picture. So we're going to be plowing through this, but please do go to the Q&A and put your questions there as we go. So just some brief introductions. Ethesham, who are you? And what do you do for VU.CITY? And this is the first time some people here are seeing you.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Ethesham. I'm currently the product owner of VU.CITY. I've got quite a bit of history. I was around before VU.CITY existed. I was part of the company, the team that created VU.CITY, Wagstaff Design. And I've been with VU.CITY ever since. And now I'm in a position where we can sort of influence the development of the app itself. Because as people know, VU.CITY isn't just the app, but also our hub and our infrastructure and our model. So I'm just on the app side.
Well, we're three companies in one. We've got a web team, we've got a modeling team, and we've got an app team. So we're a pretty sophisticated company, and Ethesham is very much in the app side of things. Okay, and many of you will know me. I am the key accounts manager for the public sector. So I look after the majority of the public sector planning departments that we support. And I just focus on, what we can do and training to really sort of support them in their operations. And joining me today is Alan Smithies from the Mayor's Office, from the London Plan team. Alan is here today to talk about the London Plan, to try and frame the things that we're going to talk about in our visual impact analysis. There are many platforms you can do this on, and Alan is simply here just to talk about the London Plan and boil that down for you so we can give it some relevance.
Thanks. Yeah, no, great to be here, Christopher. As you say, yeah, work in the London Plan team, specifically on design and heritage policies. So 3D modeling is particularly relevant to that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and start. So, Alan, take us away.
Brilliant. Okay, hopefully. So I thought I'd start this webinar off just with a quick roundup of the London Plan policies and guidance related to design, heritage, and strategic views before handing back over to VU.CITY. I thought it'd be useful to just touch on the design and characterization London Plan guidance documents, or LPGs, that were recently published in June last year. And I thought it'd be particularly useful to touch on two of them. The first two, the characterization and growth strategy LPG, and the optimizing site capacity, a design-led approach LPG, as they are relevant to 3D modeling. So in terms of characterization and growth strategy LPG, this document, this guidance document, is aimed at local authorities and neighborhood planning groups at the plan making stage. And it outlines how to undertake character assessment or study and then devise a growth strategy for that area. And it's broken down into 3 stages. So that is stage 1, the character survey and analysis, essentially the character study of an area. Stage 2, which is that evaluation of character. So thinking about how sensitive to change different areas of a borough or area are. And then stage 3, which is a growth strategy for the borough. And I think it's worth reiterating that this framework really provides and promotes greater opportunities for community engagement and stakeholder engagement at a point in the process where we feel that can be most impactful. So early in the plan making process. And then one aspect that the guidance talks about and provides further guidance on is the area around tall buildings. And this is linked to the London Plan policy, policy D9, which sets out that boroughs should identify tall building locations within their development plan. And the guidance itself sets out a 4-step process to support boroughs in identifying these areas. Step 1 is a sensitivity screening assessment. So essentially screening out areas that are inappropriate for development. And we provide, or the guidance provides, a set of criteria that we hope is useful for boroughs in doing this. And once that's done and those areas are screened out, step 2 is about aligning the remaining areas with each area's area-wide aspirations or vision. And that's about identifying which areas are envisioning tall buildings and which areas aren't. And if they aren't, it's about scoping those areas out as well. Once those areas have been scoped out, step 3 is a suitability scoping exercise. And I think this is a key area where 2D and 3D modeling can be really, really useful, because this is where you can test those remaining sites to understand the potential impact of a potential tall building in those locations. And of course, then scope out any locations that are then inappropriate following on from that suitability scoping exercise. And finally, then step 4 is the defining of those locations that are appropriate for tall buildings and the setting of appropriate or maximum heights. And you can see on the screen there provided, first of all, a list of those criteria that I spoke about earlier, then also that transition on those 2 maps at the bottom there that go from the step 3, so those areas that may be potentially suitable for tall buildings, to then a final map of those areas that are identified as appropriate for tall buildings. And I think this process is really important as it can contribute to a borough's evidence base. So not only providing evidence about those locations that are appropriate, but actually, probably more importantly, about those locations that are inappropriate for tall buildings. And that can be important if a tall building is proposed in one of those locations that is inappropriate. And just to go back to what I was saying earlier, I think the use of 3D models and tools and maps can be really useful to understand that impact of potential tall buildings.
Very hard to do that in 2D.
Well, it's definitely easier, I think, if you can get 3D perspective, definitely. So I thought I'd now just talk about another bit of guidance, which is the Optimizing Site Capacity, a Design-Led Approach LPG. And within this document, this guidance, this sets out the London Plan's design-led approach. And this relates to policy D3 in the London Plan. And this is about requiring the consideration of design options to determine the most appropriate form of development for a site that responds to its character and also its capacity for growth. And it does this by setting design parameters, or essentially a kind of strategic design code for specific sites or areas being master planned to provide that clarity and certainty over the development and redevelopment of those sites. And I think it's worth reiterating that good growth across London requires development to optimize site capacity rather than maximize density. And hopefully this guidance document provides a framework and a process to undertake this.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. And the document itself also provides a framework to determine a site's indicative site capacity if it's a residential site or if there's a residential component to it. And the document itself, or the guidance, uses a toolkit, which itself uses SketchUp to model the massing and layout of development sites in London. And I think it's worth reiterating at this point that there are many 2D and 3D models and software out there, and these can all be used for this. So it's worth saying that we use SketchUp in the model, but there are others, of course, VU.CITY, you can do that, but there are many others. So,
sorry, I'm answering questions, so you can't click.
That's all right. So just in terms of the design-led approach, the document itself has 5 stages. It's broken down into 5 stages. So stage 1 is a detailed site analysis. So essentially understanding the character and the site surrounding a site, or the character surrounding a site. And you can see within the guidance itself, we actually use an example site, which you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. And then following stage 1, it's about setting a design vision for that site. So what is the vision for this site? going into the future. And once that's been decided upon, stage 3 is about setting a set of draft design parameters. And this is about setting strategic design parameters. So it might be the height, it could be the massing, it could be the layout, or the green infrastructure of the site, and understanding that as at a strategic level for that site. And once those have been decided upon, stage 4 is the testing of those parameters and to determine an indicative site capacity for those sites that are residential. And I think it's worth saying at this point that this process between stage 2 and stage 4 is an iterative process rather than a linear process. And I think, you know, it might be that designers go round that several times, where they might tweak the design vision and they might come up with slightly different design parameters, and that influencing the final design or the site capacity. And then finally, at the end, stage 5 is about finalizing those site-based design parameters, or that strategic design code for that site.
We have a minute until we have to move on, Alan, if you
Oh,
could.
goodness. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So this is just a slide showing what you can do with 3D models. We use SketchUp in the guidance itself. And it's just important to reiterate that the design parameters should be concise, graphical, and simple to understand parameters. And you can see that by doing that, you can look at the site through different views. You might be able to look at down different streets to understand the enclosure ratios, the sort of what it feels like on the street. And again, looking at different views. And then just before I hand back over to Christopher, I just thought I'd touch on strategic and local views. So this relates to policy HC3 and HC4 of the London Plan. And in particular, the London View Management Framework, or the LVMF, sets out 27 strategic views across London, which focus on the views to particularly 3 of the most strategically important landmarks. And the LVMF itself provides protection of these views via designated protected vistas and protected silhouettes, as well as management guidance for each of the view. And it's just worth saying that we're actually going to be looking to review this guidance and update it. And we're going to be undertaking that in the coming months. And we also aim to, through this process, provide more guidance on how boroughs can be setting local views. And I think that 3D tools and models can be really useful in that respect. So I'll hand back over to Christopher.
Thank you, Alan.
Hopefully that was useful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Steal back the mouse.
Brilliant. So really excellent sort of framing there from Alan. And I think it's, let's get into the tools. But before we get into the tools, why visualize your project? Why bring everyone into 3D in a live environment? Because politics, I love this quote here from Naomi Klein, politics hates a vacuum. If it isn't filled with hope, someone will fill it with fear. So if there is a void of what does this development look like, from where, then you are just opening up to yourself up to all sorts of fear. And we see it all the time. So anyone, I guess, who subscribes and buys into VU.CITY as people are, and that this idea of just visualizing and being extremely transparent right from the get-go, buys into this idea that if you want to really sort of take control of the narrative, then you can get there first and be precise about what can be seen and where. What are we? Well, we are a smart city platform, and our goal is to leverage cutting-edge technology, including 3D modeling, artificial intelligence, and geospatial data to enable cities to be designed, simulated, evaluated in a virtual environment, leading to more informed decision-making, better outcomes for communities and the environment. And it's putting everyone together in one interactive platform to be able to, have these lovely live conversations. This is how the model will one day bring everyone together. And we're very much working on web map technology to bring in citizens more. And that's definitely something that's in the R&D that we've been looking at for a long time. And Department of Leveling Up, the round 3 funding did for the Southampton web map project. And that will be filtering its way out in the coming couple of years. But at the moment, we are very much specializing in supporting this relationship between local planning authorities and the builders. Now, these are some key uses. What can the public sector use VU.CITY for? Development management, so they can make robust, rapid application assessments. And that means that they can essentially work on less applications and do so more thoroughly. And policy and plan making, as Alan set out, there's a lot of policy which is going to be far better in 3D. And VU.CITY has been used in policy many times, over 55 policy documents and 2 inquiries. So it is pretty key for townscape and for local planning authorities when they're looking at their views and areas of development and growth and opportunity areas. And the private sector uses for a developer and a planner, it's really about them being able to mock up and test schemes without having to consult or need technical skills. So it very much does invite everyone in. And also for preparing applications, being able to review what architects are working on instead of being confined to elevation drawings. So this idea of being able to see everything vividly in a really effective communication language, which is 3D. And everyone gets the idea of, gets a full picture with more views, and you can reduce the need for site visits. So you can really understand a place before even stepping foot there. And you can have high quality conversations in live environments. What do you need to do a visual impact report? Yes, it's a pretty big list. You need an accurate model, LOD 300, that's level of detail 300. So ours is 15 centimeters is what we tell people. But I think the median value is about 7 centimeters. We just put it up to 15 centimeters just to sort of allow. GIS software, specialist coding skills. Someone told me the other day you had to have Python to run a script. Cost, either cost to pay people to do this for you or cost to purchase all these things to put it together yourself. And then time. Time to wait for turnarounds, time to put all these things together to maintain it. It's a very expensive thing to do. So we've created an all-in-one solution where the model is funded by everyone who uses the platform. So no particular person has to pay for that. And we've made these tools available. This is the ZTV, the Zone of Theoretical Visibility, as you'll see it on VU.CITY. So it shows where a building is visible from the terrain level, okay? And that's 1.6 meters above terrain. And it is the whole building, okay? So it's building specific. If you're putting it on clusters, your results might not be as good. You need to focus it on one building at a time. And it creates a spectrum of colors. It's very comprehensive in that sense. And each color will tell you which part of the building you can see from standing where. So if it's red, which you see at the bottom, and it's printed red on the ground, we would deem that a high visual impact, because if you can see the bottom of the building, you can generally see the whole building. The top is blue. So you've got that lovely spectrum, and it'll just give you that at a glance. The great thing about these is that they're precise. It's a precise report, they're robust, and they're thorough. If it can be seen, you will know exactly where it can be seen. So people like them from that point of view. There's no more guesswork. It might look good here, it might look good there. What about that view there? You get that straight away and you can start placing cameras. And we have a 2-kilometer range on our zone of theoretical visibility within the platform. If you want something bigger than that, we could turn that around for you as well. And this is what it looks like from above. So this is something that Ethesham rendered. You can all render these, and they look very lovely. Now, what is a viewshed? Whereas a zone of theoretical visibility would focus on one building and would create a report, and then that report is done. That's static, okay? A viewshed is line of sight, okay? So it's often focused on a subject. Subject here is this person looking across the hill, okay? So it's a way of just illustrating what a subject at a particular point can see, okay, in 3D. One more thing about this, we have 4 cameras and 4 points, and you'll see in this diagram here that we have different levels of coloring there. The dark pink means it can be seen on all 4 cameras, and the lightest pink means only 1 camera can see it. So that will indicate what it may be able to see. But line of sight is very much like a ray of light, and the way we do it is we create it through the camera study. And as you can see, you place the cameras on here. In this particular use, we're not looking at it from a subject point of view. We're looking at it from an object point of view. So if you want to see what part of this building on this side is visible, that's when you would use it, and you would stick the cameras on the side of the buildings. And this is what it looks like here. This is another render I did, and this is what all those 4 cameras can do. So that side of that building, you can see its visibility really clearly pointing straight out. I believe that's easterly. So putting them together now, zone of theoretical visibility, it's a static report. It's based on one whole building, and it's around that radius of the building. And once you've rendered it, the report is done. With viewsheds, they're point focused, it's live, and it doesn't have a limit. It will be on the limit. The only limit is however many tiles you can load. And the best place to do that is a camera study. But I think we should really just get into the demo soon. Oh, and one thing to also mention when we're dealing with this is there is a margin of error, that 15 to 7 centimeter accuracy that I mentioned before. It can result in some variations, and that's just something to bear in mind of. But if you have a look at all the inquiries, all the policies that's been developed, and all the TVIAs, which you will still need to do, they still do match up perfectly. But it's just something you're still going to need to do your TVIAs. Just do it. You'll just have to do less of them than before. And now we are going to switch over to Ethesham, and we're going to get straight into it. Sure. Let's have a look at these questions coming in. So Alicia, hello Alicia. Does this feature work for masses built in VU.CITY or only imported models?
It works for both. And yeah, in the demo that I'm going to do today, I'm going to create a building in VU.CITY. I'm going to create the massing live.
Okay, and we may have some feedback issues. Okay, fine. Go for it, Ethesham.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess the first thing to introduce is the hub. This is where you will launch VU.CITY, but it's also where exported screenshots are saved. It's also where you'll be uploading your FBXs or other data types. And you can, when you launch VU.CITY, you have the choice of launching by the desktop or the cloud. I'm going to launch via the desktop. I'm going to download. There's been an update to our assets. So this is a section where sometimes on a daily or weekly basis, we'll be updating the VU.CITY model. It could be minor changes like adapting a building or updating a whole tile or adding a new tile to a city. So we're in London, but we also have coverage in Belfast, in Dublin, in Manchester, Birmingham. So I guess I'll start by loading up the scene, and I'm going to create a massing in somewhere which is obviously not going to be feasible, i.e. in Parliament Square. But we're sort of picking this area because we want to use the Houses of Parliament as a sensitive building whose visibility we want to protect from sensitive views. So I'll go ahead and just create a massing now. And I will press Shift to snap at 90-degree angles. And I'll make this building 60 meters in height. So I guess the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to run a quick ZTV on this to assess where it will be visible from, as Chris mentioned in his slides.
So yeah, so for ZTV, all you have to do is type in the name of the report.
I'm going to set it to 1.5 square kilometers in range, and I'll set the granularity to 9. Basically, 8. Oh, 8, okay. No, I'm going to go for 9. Basically, this suggests the size of your sample area. So each square will represent 9 square meters. And so obviously the smaller, the finer you go in detail, the longer the ZTV study will take to render.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's worth also reiterating that I was around before VU.CITY existed, and this process would typically take a couple of days to a few weeks to produce, depending on the size of the area. So I guess that's one big gain in using a live platform like VU.CITY is that we're hoping that we can really speed up the planning process and the ability for people to rapidly iterate their massings and their designs.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to, is how quickly can you run these reports, and how hard is it to actually get to the point where you get the report. And all we've done here is type in the name of the report, and we've just tweaked 2 things, and here we go.
So here are the ZTV results. As you can see, the building has been split into 5-meter increments, and everywhere that's red on the ground at 1.6 meters, we'll be able to see the bottom of the building. And so the blue areas on the ground and the sort of yellow areas between the middle and the top of the building. So I would like to assess this further. So I understand that various heights of this building are visible around the area, but I want to find out a bit more about that. I want to assess the building more. So I'm going to run a viewshed on this building. So the way we do that is by setting up our camera study. So I'm going to select that building as the focus point, and I'm going to place my cameras based on these results. So I'll go down here onto Westminster Bridge, back, maybe the other bridge here. Also worth mentioning is that our ZTV results and our viewsheds do not take into consideration the trees.
Yes.
So I'm actually going to switch off my trees. And also to sort of improve performance of VU.CITY, I'm going to turn off the shadows as well. Yeah.
I mean, I always turn off shadows. You only really need them on for daylight studies.
I mean, I feel like mentioning that I feel like VU.CITY users take it for granted that we can see, we have almost instant access to the model, and that it loads in and loads out really quickly, and that we have shadows. But these are the most intensive things for an app to be able to do, to actually load in millions and millions of polygons, and to this, and then to double the calculations by adding shadows is really, really performance intensive. So it's worth mentioning to users that if you don't need to have the shadows, turn them off to have a better experience, because you're really putting your graphics card through its paces.
And Ethesham, Wolfgang here has just asked, it's 9 meters squared or 9 meters 9 by 9?
9 by 9 meters.
It's 9 by 9. It's not 9 meters squared, Wolfgang.
So I'm just going to use, if you can see in the thumbnails at the moment, you'll see that the ZTV results are embedded in that image. I'm just going to use the viewsheds to remove the ZTV results from the viewpoints by pushing the main camera's settings. I'm going to skip updating the thumbnails as well. But it just means that when I jump in, I'm not going to see the ZTV results on the ground. Okay, so I've set up my camera points. I'm going to then unhighlight my massing, and I'm going to turn on the viewsheds. So the first viewshed that I'll turn on is going to be the one on Westminster Bridge. And this calculation is a one-time calculation, so it won't happen every time I click on the button for the other views. So here we go. Here is the first viewshed result. And as you can see, with the viewpoint from Westminster Bridge, Big Ben is massively occluding this building. Let's turn on the other view sheds here. So you can have up to 4 concurrent view sheds at a time. And if you saw that yellow flashing, basically every time you hover over a thumbnail, it will show you it will isolate the view shed results, right? So as I go down, I'm able to see, well, okay, this camera emits this view shed. And if I turn them all off, you have sort of the accumulation of all of those view shed results.
That's a pretty incredible shadow it's casting as well. I think it's testament to the accuracy of that LOD4 model.
So I can quickly now, I mean, okay, so based on these results, I can understand that if I just reduce the height of this building by half, it will no longer be visible in any of those viewpoints. But I saw that one side of the building is actually less visible than the other. If I go back to 60, you'll see that if I take away the southern facing walls, maybe I can get a bit more height than the 30 meters. So I'm going to now jump into my massing and change the footprint of this building. Yeah.
And it's worth saying as well that one of the LVMF views is actually from Parliament Square. So I'm not sure this building at all would ever satisfy that.
No.
But we won't go there with this.
This is a completely hypothetical scenario.
Indeed,
absolutely.
Indeed.
Just to reiterate.
Yes.
So I've now reduced this massing by 40 meters. As you can see, there's a slither of visibility, and if we go into the viewpoints, we can see what that impact actually looks like. So I'm going to jump into these positions. I'll turn off the view sheds actually. And I'm going to just scroll through the viewpoints. There you go. And actually, I want to scrutinize this building even further and use the view sheds in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
So, oh, do you want to say something?
Yeah, so what we just did there is we did a zone of theoretical visibility to find out what could be seen. We then went to the points and we placed cameras. That's using the line of sight is about the subject, as if the subject is standing here and looking there, what can they see? That's how we were able to reduce this down so that you can't see it towering over Parliament. And now we're using the view sheds to do something else. We're now saying, well, who can see this object? How many subjects can see this object? And this is where the Pano 360 comes in, because this is where we're now making the whole camera wide. We're not looking at just one human sight. We're trying to look at who can see this area. So this is very much a case of subject rather than, sorry, object. We're seeing which subjects can see the object rather than the other way around.
Okay, so while you were speaking there, Chris, I set up the camera on top of the building as a 360 camera. So that, as you may know, can be exported as a 360 camera and then viewed on web pages as a 360 view. But I'm going to turn this view into a 360 view shed. So if I zoom out, you'll see. So this is essentially behaving like a ZTV now.
Yeah.
And one of the key benefits with using the view shed to do this is that it's actually limitless. We can scroll to infinity and the view shed results will still show based on what tiles have been loaded.
Yeah. So if you're on the desktop, and I was doing this the other day, is you can, I've got the cloud to do about 6 square kilometers. And we've had, so that would increase the range that you can do on a ZTV now quite significantly, especially if you put the object at the bottom of the screen and just had the whole northerly view and then the easterly, westerly, south, pasted those all together, and also rendering those in an orthograph, like a top-down view. It's like a bird's eye, so you can zoom in. We can probably have a look at that once we finish this. But someone has asked here, does the desktop run better than the cloud? Now, this is an interesting question because the desktop, everything is local. So if you have a powerful enough computer to run a desktop, and they're not the most expensive gaming laptops. You could probably, £500–600, you could get a tower that would do it. And you can get laptops for around the $800–900 mark that will do it as well. But you can run the desktop. And when I first started at VU.CITY, all I ever wanted to do was run the desktop because I just loved The colors are very intense. Everything is local. It's very powerful. You don't have to go across servers. But the cloud is actually preferred by my colleagues. And because the desktop takes a while to download, it takes a while to open. When it's running, your whole computer sounds like a 747 about to take off. So it is there is a bit of oomph that goes along with it, whereas cloud is just everything's all updated straight away. And if you have a browser like the Brave browser, that is amazing. It's specifically for gaming, and the performance on it is fantastic. All you have to do on the cloud is tweak the resolution, make it 1920 by 1080, and we can show you how to do that.
I can say a little bit about the difference in performance. Generally, the cloud, the graphics cards that are running the cloud are very, very powerful. So it should be smoother on the cloud in many instances. The reason why I'm not doing so in this webinar is that I don't want to throttle the web connection that we've got, right? So because at the moment I'm screen sharing and I'm running VU.CITY. If I was running on cloud, I'd be streaming the video signal of the VU.CITY cloud instance.
Yeah, we decided to do it today for that reason.
So to take the burden away from the internet connection, I'm running VU.CITY on my laptop.
Yeah. If anyone has children at home who like streaming games, then you'll know the second they're playing that game, your meeting is done. And that is very much the same. You are streaming a high performance model through a gaming engine. So we just need to bear that in mind. And I say, don't even use Wi-Fi repeaters either, because that introduces an extra level of latency. What we're trying to do is make it as simple as possible, which is why we're actually improving our stack and making it more and more efficient. Some of you have noticed that the platform is more stable than it's ever been, and the cloud experience is better than it's ever been. And we're just going to keep doing that. We've got some questions here. Oh, Todor here. Thanks a lot, Todor. An amazing addition to the already impressive arsenal. Thank you so much, Todor. Bill Sands here. Hello, Bill. Thank you for your question. Can the colors of the Viewshed results be changed? Pink is particularly bad color to see for a colorblind person. It can be very hard to differentiate between certain colors.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a big consideration that we had when we were creating this feature. We will eventually give the user the ability to change the colors, but as a first iteration of this feature, we opted for this paint color. But yeah, in the future, we're hoping to be able to allow the users to apply their own colors to the Viewshed results.
Yeah. Well, we have the timeline, and when in VU.CITY, you can see the buildings are blue under construction, and then you've got the yellow and consented. So I think we're probably a bit limited, but I think the ability to change the color would be brilliant. We'd all welcome that, especially when you're doing those top-down orthographic and you want something that really, really stands out. But definitely, for those who are short of sight or colorblind, yeah, we absolutely want to make this better for you and allow you to choose the color that's going to work best for you. Roshan Kerr, when will the Viewshed feature be live on the cloud? It is live, and that's it. All you have to do is click on this small circular icon.
Yes, correct.
Ethesham, if you want to just sort of show that, that's it. It's just a camera study. All you're doing is setting up a camera, and whichever camera you want to turn into a Viewshed, that little fuzzy sun almost icon. What is that meant to be?
That's meant to be a series of view cones, Viewsheds, in 360 degrees.
Okay.
And can I just ask a question? I mean, we've looked, or you've looked at putting the points on a massing that is theoretical. Could you do that with an existing building? I'm thinking particularly a kind of church spire or something like that. So you'd be able to, I suppose, see the local views that have a view to that heritage asset or that local spire.
I can do that now. I mean, shall we do that on?
We did that on St. Paul's the other day when we put them all around the bowl, seeing who in London can see that. In fact, I'm going to render those.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a really useful aspect in terms of
Matt Felton. There's a character from the past.
Lovely to see you.
Matt is one of our former VU.CITY. Spent many great years. In fact, Matt worked on Viewsheds, didn't he?
He did indeed. Thanks for all your hard work.
Yes.
He's at Bentley now.
Yeah, he is now at Bentley. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. So was the maximum view shed line of sight distance?
Well, the distance is infinite. It will go if you just scroll. If you keep scrolling in VU.CITY, it will just keep shedding the view shed. But then you'll start to unload tiles as you're moving away.
Yeah.
So it's dependent on how many tiles you have loaded in
Yeah.
your scene.
Mhm.
But it is technically infinite.
Yeah. So as
Or at
many
least the bounds
tiles,
of, yeah.
but you know, in loading those tiles, we just have to be sure that anytime we're going to load a lot of tiles and we're going to look in one direction, we need to do that in a camera study. That's the safe place to do that. And I got it, I think 6 square kilometers, and it did that all orthographically top down quite easily. And an anonymous question here. Can you use this tool in a countryside setting? Does it pick up terrain levels? Yes, it does pick up terrain levels, but obviously it won't pick up trees. Unless, Ethesham, if you put in your own trees as models, it would pick those up, wouldn't
Yes, it would.
Yeah, so if you do want to add trees, you can actually, obviously you wouldn't want to add every single tree in the platform, but if you're looking at a more narrow view and the trees were particularly important, if you place trees in that point, you just replace the VU.CITY trees for, you know, just a standard tree model, then that would work.
I would suggest not having too high poly count for your trees if you do import them. Try and reduce the poly count of the trees that you're importing.
Always. And one more here from Matt. Can you export the viewshed as a shape file or an image?
Not yet as a shape file, but you can export it as an image. So what I'm doing now is I've placed a 360 camera on top of the spire of St. Paul's.
Yes.
And I'm going to set up another camera right here and make it sort of perfectly aligned to north and facing down. And I'm going to export this image.
Yeah.
There you go.
So it's just a case of rendering the images live through the camera studies, through the export. And here's the St. Paul's spire.
So I'm now going to export this image and let it load.
I think a shape file, someone asked me about that. I think it was Andrew. Someone asked me the other day about exporting the shape file.
Yeah, so we VU.CITY still offer the service of rendering ZTVs on a case-by-case basis outside of the app. And when we do that, we render it into a geographically located image, which can then be imported into GIS software. So that is a common workflow that people require with their ZTV so that they can use it in QGIS or other GIS platforms. So we are aware that it would be useful for our ZTVs to also be able to be exported into a GIS format that can be used in GIS software. So we would like to do that. It's just that there are so many things that we could and should be doing. And we just have to find the right strategy and order to release these features. But it's definitely on our radar. I would love for that to be enabled.
Yeah, we would definitely like to be able to do that. Shape files would be very useful to anyone. So James, hello, thank you, James Kerr. And hi guys, is the curvature of the Earth or atmospheric haze taken into account for longer range views?
So our model does not cater for the it doesn't take into consideration the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah.
But the LVMFs do. So we've adapted the LVMFs that are displayed in the app to take into consideration the curvature of the Earth. And atmospheric haze, no, it's not accurate. We do have like fog system and a daylight system that has fog, but I wouldn't say it's like based on physics. It's an effect.
It is.
It's a visual effect.
It is quite nice, the fog effect.
And I think it is a really good point by James there, because that is an aspect, as you say, that the LVMF sort of considers and is aware of. Yeah.
So while we were talking, I exported this image in the hub, and here it is in the hub.
Yeah, and you can zoom in and inspect that.
In lovely 8K.
In 8K, so always do an 8K render. I've been doing some 8K renders on this, and it's extremely powerful.
I mean, you may notice this open area here. I was a bit concerned, but it's because where I placed the camera is just in front of the spire. So the spire itself is occluding this section of the results. When
I looked at St. Paul's the other day, we put I had to stick the cameras on the outside of the bowl so it wasn't sort of in the way. You hadn't have those ornamental pillars in the way.
So I'm just using the hub now to annotate this area.
And that's another feature. You can now annotate on the hub photos and talk in greater detail. So another question here, can we remove an existing building model and put a new one on it, like a building extension or a rebuild project?
Sorry, what was that question I got
Can you remove an
engulfed
existing
in my
building model and put a new one on it? So that's essentially just the height tool. So our height tool is now, you know, it just had a big update end of last year. You can remove individual buildings, but you can also draw whole sections of buildings and trees to be removed. So
I can show that right now. If you want to go to the next question.
Yeah, maybe split St. Paul's in half, Ethesham. That'll be a good.
Don't think I'm particularly happy with that.
No, let's not do that. That's too close.
It's difficult to pick a building to remove because it's any building could be a sensitive building. So I'll just remove a piece of ground here.
Every time I do VU.CITY training sessions, the council halls seem to get it the most. Every time I do the high tools, everyone goes for the place they work.
So here with the high tool, I drew an area and I hid the terrain, the trees and all buildings. If I extend this area, it will remove the buildings and the terrain. And that's the slice tool as well. And then you can then theoretically bring in your master plan to fill that space.
Yeah, and you can export that as well.
Yeah, so this area can also be exported as a GIS data file, a DXF. So you can take this area and bring it into your GIS package or into AutoCAD or 3ds Max to use it as a slicing tool for your master plan so that it comes back in geographically located perfectly to fit VU.CITY model.
Yeah. And so again, Bill's saying that pink's quite pale. It's quite difficult to see between the pale grey. But yeah,
I really hear you, Bill. I apologize for that.
We're going to work on
maybe
that.
we can do a special build for Bill that's not pink.
Yeah.
I'll email you, Bill.
Okay. And any further questions from anyone? We still have the open floor. We can do a bit more reverse massing. Does that explain everything? Is everyone who here is a VU.CITY user? And have we shown you how to do this? Or is there anything we need to cover in more detail? And who is new to VU.CITY and might want to ask more questions? Okay. So, Ethesham, let's go to the LVMF around the Big Ben area.
Okay.
Because one of those intersects with the massing we just did, and let's see how it interacts with that.
Oh, the Houses of Parliament.
Yeah, sorry, the Houses of Parliament. Can you overlay existing and proposed buildings on a site?
How do you? Yeah. I mean, so the VU.CITY timeline has proposed buildings and buildings under construction. I mean, let's
have a look at the timeline. Let's go to the city square kilometer and see how that's changed since 2016.
Okay.
This is definitely one of the most powerful features here, is the fact that you can time travel.
So I've gone over to the city cluster. I'll let that tile load.
Yeah, and this is the developments timeline you're looking at. So there's a key here which tells you yellow is consented, blue is under construction, the dark gray is completed. Now this is 2016 when we built the base map, and you can take these things on and off, and you can rewind to see how things have changed since 2016. There we go. So that's 2016, and you can see the shard this is the shard right there, isn't it? Now completely engulfed almost from this view.
So I think that answers your question.
Is there an easy way? So, for example, in a scenario where you've a site has been redeveloped and therefore its existing building, you're manually removing it and then you're putting in the massing of your new building. I'm just wondering whether you could then see the sort of before and after.
Yeah, I can do that now. So that's where the VisDates comes into play. So let's pick this building here, for example, I'll place a camera on the bridge, looking at, sorry, not all the cameras.
Yeah. And Simone will get to yours as soon as we're just done with this one here with Ethesham.
Okay, so in this viewpoint, we have this building in yellow, but I want to quickly flick between this building and a previous state. So I'm going to duplicate this viewpoint, and in the original one, I'll go backwards in time on this timeline, like that, and save that. So the movement of the timeline is saved in the state of the viewpoint. So if I go into present mode, for example, and look at that, I can flick between these viewpoints.
Yeah. And again, this is an update that some people probably may not have heard of, the visibility states, because I don't think it tells you what it does, right? What it does is it means that you can have lots of different versions of VU.CITY within a camera study, and you can send those states back and forth through the main scene and through each camera, and then you can use it just to pop. You can put different models in, you can put different data layers, different weather, different times of year. It really does make things really easy rather than having to go to the main timeline to change them all the time. So Simone Venditti, hello Simone, thank you for joining. Can I import a polyline to hide terrain or buildings?
You cannot yet.
For those who don't know what a polyline is, would you like to explain that?
So I guess this is another a data type. So it's it could be a red line area, red line boundary, or it could be it's basically a flat area, a flat object that can be produced in AutoCAD or GIS software. And so this person is asking, well, we often have polylines or shapes for like showing red line boundaries or other sort of area types. Can we take that shape and bring it into VU.CITY and use as a cutting tool for the high tool? We can't do that yet, but we would like to be able to achieve that. I mean, our developers have implemented that, but we haven't. It's not yet on the roadmap for release. It is very, very possible, and we'd like to enable that as well.
And Simone, what we'll do is we'll make sure that goes on our product board as well, so that we can, gauge how possible that is. Okay, so a basic question. When you create a view, is there a street view setting or types of view? Seems like you can place it anywhere, which is great, but most would like to see a particular setting, person on the street, field of view, etc. So we have walk mode, which is 1.6. So when you put the camera, if Ethesham just sort of clicks on the camera, on add single camera, you can see how he's hovering there. And that will stick to the terrain. Okay, that's called walk mode, and that is 1.6 meters above the terrain. So here you can walk around. You can even record videos using the screen recorder. And this is the standard, which is 1.6 meters. Okay, so that's for obviously roads, fields, whatever.
Just one thing, so
yep.
to stop you. Also in this panel, you have the ability to change your bearing, to change the pitch. To change the lens type. So right now we're in a 24mm lens, but I can change it to like 40. And you can change the height above the ground. So when you're walking, it is 1.6 meters, but then you can manually put another height. So you can stick yourself to a building or
well, if you keep moving though, it'll keep you exactly that much above the terrain though, won't it, Ethesham?
Yeah.
So you can, if you want to explore the city at this height here, now walk forward.
It won't stay there. It will go back to ground.
Oh, will it go back to ground? Okay.
I think to be able to raise and lower the viewpoint, I think is useful. I'm particularly thinking that although the default is 1.6, if you can lower that, then you can get the eye line for people in wheelchairs and things like this and pushchairs. So I think that's useful. Yeah.
Yeah.
From the previous question I was asking about VSTEX, I just felt compelled to show an example. So
if you were really tall.
So we've got the first state, which is like 2016. Then the next slide is with the consented buildings turned on. And then here's another one with a massing that's been put on top of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything that you can do in the orbit cameras is savable in the VSTEX.
Okay, and Todor, can you add visibility states after you've set the views? Is this done via duplicating views you've already identified?
Right, so that's a great question. So let's say, if you may have noticed that in this thumbnail, the massing is white because I saved this viewpoint before I added the color green to it. So if I want to add the color green to this view and actually this view here as well, I can push the states of the main camera onto those viewpoints. So I'll do that now. So they will update, but also it will update the thumbnails for that, because you can push the state without updating the thumbnails, which requires rendering, or you can push it and update the thumbnails. And I'm choosing to update the thumbnails so that they appear green. I think that answers your question. And you can also take the states of the viewpoints and push them back to the main camera.
Yeah. So do you want to just demonstrate that?
Yeah, I can. So I'm going to now take the state of the first viewpoint that had the timeline all the way back to 2016 and this massing removed. So I will pull the states from this viewpoint and
there you go.
So
Change the timeline. So the camera study is it's almost like a save. It's like all your different states of a project can all be saved in each camera shot.
Yeah.
Which will save so many people so much time, especially when you're doing all your different iterations. Jeremy Yen, thank you for your question. Is it possible to render street elevation sections?
Okay, so there's number of ways of answering that. So we need to be able to enable orthographic view for street elevations, and that is definitely on our roadmap. We're actually experimenting with that at the moment. But then to have section views is an added level of complexity. What that requires is slicing the model and then filling it up, which is actually a really complicated set of calculations and not as easy as it
seems.
Right. So
Go just chop it in. That's fine.
So are you saying that you chop it and it's sort of hollow?
Yeah,
it's a hollow.
So when you use the height, when you chop it, it will be hollow. So
yeah,
I'm pretty confident that we will be releasing an update eventually. I don't want to say when. Where you can have an orthographic view. So you can go into street, you can go on ground level and have an orthographic view where all the vertical lines are completely vertical. So there's no perspective distortion on the camera. So that enables elevations, but section views, I can't really say when we would choose to tackle that, because that's quite a meaty dilemma to solve and requires that group processing.
Okay, thank you. Right, well, it's 12 o'clock. Thank you, everyone, and thank you indeed, Alan, for giving us time to come down to explain the London plan to our users and our audience today. We're really, really grateful for that.
Not quite its entirety, but
no. To try to condense some key areas.
Also sharing.
Yeah, if you would. So just everyone, thank you so much for joining. If you have any further questions, please do let us know. And we're happy to respond to via email. And yeah, we hope to see you again.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.